Ahoy there, frequency sailors! I'm Jack the Pirate, and welcome to Mind Voyages podcast. Today we're embarking on an extraordinary journey, tuning into parallel dimension radio. Ever wondered if your mind could pick up signals from alternate realities? Well, we're about to find out.
Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Maya, cognitive neuroscientist specializing in consciousness studies. I've spent the last decade researching how our brains might function as receivers for information beyond our immediate reality.
And I'm Monica, meditation instructor and former skeptic turned believer after experiencing what I can only describe as downloads during deep meditation states. I help beginners access these altered states of awareness.
We're in for a treat today. We'll explore everything from awakening your inner receiver to understanding vibrational signals, peak reception times, and even creating your own frequency symbol. By the end, you'll have practical techniques to potentially tap into the cosmic radio that is your mind.
And don't worry if this sounds complex, we're breaking everything down for complete beginners.
So adjust your mental dials and stay tuned. The multiverse might just be calling. Let's dive right in with the fundamentals. How do we actually begin awakening this inner receiver we all supposedly have? Dr. Maya, what's happening in our brains when we're trying to tap into these alternate frequencies?
Great question, Jack. Think of your brain as naturally tuned to one station, your current reality. But research suggests our brains produce a wide spectrum of waves, delta, theta, alpha, beta, and gamma. When we intentionally shift into alpha and theta states through meditation or right before sleep, we're essentially turning the dial on our mental radio.
Exactly. And even complete beginners can start simply. Close your eyes, take 3 deep breaths, and imagine a glowing antenna extending from the top of your head. Just visualize it reaching out into the cosmos, ready to receive.
Wait, so anyone can do this? No special abilities needed?
Absolutely. Start with 5 minutes daily. The key is being receptive without judgment. Those random thoughts that seem to come from nowhere, pay attention to those. They might be your first signals.
And remember, this is a skill that develops with practice. Your brain actually forms new neural pathways when you regularly enter these receptive states.
So we've awakened our inner receivers, but how do we know what we're actually listening for? What do these vibrational signals actually sound like or feel like?
Great question. These signals don't typically arrive as clear voices. Most often they manifest as sudden insights, unusual imagery, or what we call intrusive thoughts that feel somehow different from your regular thinking patterns.
Exactly. For beginners, I recommend starting with a simple exercise. Find a quiet space, close your eyes, and ask a specific question about something you're struggling with. Then just listen. The answer might come as a feeling, a word, or even a color.
So, these signals could arrive in any form? That sounds tricky to identify.
The key is noticing what neuroscientists call pattern interrupts, thoughts that stand out from your normal mental chatter. Your brain naturally filters unusual information, but we're training it to notice instead of dismiss.
And don't overthink it. Sometimes the simplest ideas are the most profound. A beginner's mind is actually an advantage here. You haven't developed the skepticism that blocks reception.
Now that we understand what these signals feel like, the million-dollar question is, how do we actually decode these multiversal transmissions? Are there specific techniques to make sense of what we're receiving?
Absolutely, Jack. The key is understanding that these transmissions often arrive in symbolic form. Your brain tries to translate unfamiliar information into something recognizable. That's why journaling immediately after reception is crucial. Write everything down without filtering.
I recommend a simple exercise for beginners. When you receive an unusual thought, ask yourself, does this feel like me? Often, multiversal messages have a distinct otherness quality to them.
So we might receive solutions to problems we're facing?
Precisely. Ask a specific question before your practice. Something like, what solution exists for this challenge I'm facing? Then remain open to unexpected answers.
And don't dismiss what comes through as just imagination. Neuroscience suggests our imagination itself may be a form of multiversal receiver. Einstein credited his breakthrough insights to visual daydreams, not logical reasoning.
I've noticed both of you mentioning these signals coming at particular times. Are there specific moments when our cosmic radio reception gets clearer? Like, should I be trying this at 3 a.m. or during a full moon?
Great observation, Jack. Neurologically speaking, there are indeed optimal windows. Research shows our brains are most receptive during what we call liminal states, those in-between moments when consciousness shifts.
Absolutely. For beginners, I recommend 3 key times. Right before falling asleep, just after waking up, and during what I call flow states, when you're completely absorbed in an activity you love. Poti.
Wait, so I could potentially receive signals while playing my favorite video game?
Precisely. When your analytical mind steps back, your receptive mind steps forward. Even mundane activities like showering work well. Ever notice how solutions often come when you're shampooing?
And nature amplifies reception tremendously. Even just 5 minutes sitting under a tree can create perfect conditions. The key is consistency. Regular practice builds better reception over time.
I've been hearing a lot about binaural beats being used for everything from sleep to focus. But can they actually help tune into parallel frequencies? What's the science here?
Binaural beats are fascinating, Jack. When you play slightly different frequencies in each ear, your brain creates a third tone. The difference between those frequencies. This can guide your brainwaves into specific states like theta or delta that are perfect for reception.
For beginners, I recommend starting with 7 to 8 hertz beats. That's right in the alpha-theta boundary where reception seems strongest. Just use headphones, close your eyes, and let the beats do the work of shifting your consciousness.
And this actually works better than regular meditation?
It's more like a shortcut. Regular meditation takes practice to reach these states. Binaural beats can help beginners access them almost immediately.
Just remember to set your intention before listening. Ask a specific question you need insight on. The beats will help quiet your conscious mind, so subtle signals can come through. Try it for just 10 minutes at first. You might be surprised what you receive.
So we've covered binaural beats, but I'm curious about creating a consistent practice. Is there a universal ritual that works for anyone trying to tune into these parallel frequencies?
There absolutely is. I teach beginners a simple 5-minute ritual. Find a quiet space, sit comfortably, and visualize a cosmic radio dial at the top of your head. Then simply set your intention with a phrase like, I wish to hear insights from a universe where my problem is already solved.
What's fascinating is how effective visualization is for this process. Our brains respond to imagery as if it were a real experience. When you picture that dial turning, your neural pathways are actually creating new connections.
Should people expect to hear actual voices or sounds?
It varies person to person. Some receive words, others get images, feelings, or sudden insights. The key is not filtering what comes through, even if it seems strange or unrelated.
And consistency is crucial. 3 5-minute sessions daily creates what we call receptive neuroplasticity. Your brain literally becomes better at receiving these signals over time.
Let's talk about what might be the most important part of this whole process. What do you actually do with these insights once you receive them? How do we bridge the gap between reception and real-world application?
This is crucial. Your brain processes thousands of thoughts daily, but these special transmissions need preservation. I suggest keeping a dedicated frequency journal by your bedside. Write everything down immediately, even if it seems nonsensical at first.
Voice notes work wonderfully too. Many beginners find that speaking the insight aloud helps solidify it. Plus, sometimes the way you naturally express it reveals deeper meanings.
But how do we know which ideas to actually act on? Not every cosmic download is going to be the next billion-dollar invention, right?
Start small. Choose one insight each week to implement, even in a tiny way. Maybe it's a new morning routine or approaching a conversation differently.
And create a symbol that represents your receptive state, a simple drawing only you understand. Looking at it later can actually help you reconnect with that reception mindset when reviewing your notes. It's like a neurological bookmark.
We've been talking about documenting these parallel frequencies, but I'm really curious about this concept of creating your own frequency symbol. Why is this important, and how exactly do beginners create one?
This is where science meets personal symbolism, Jack. Our brains respond powerfully to visual anchors. A personal frequency symbol acts as a neurological switch that can instantly put your mind into receptive mode.
Beginners can create one easily. Just get quiet, close your eyes, and ask, what symbol represents my connection to parallel dimensions? Draw whatever comes to mind. It might be a spiral, a geometric shape, or something completely unique to you.
So it doesn't need to be complicated or artistic.
Not at all. The simplest symbols often work best. Place it where you'll see it daily, on your phone wallpaper, by your bedside, or as a small doodle in your journal.
What's fascinating is how your brain forms an association with this symbol. Eventually, just looking at it can trigger the same brainwave patterns as your full reception ritual. It becomes a shortcut to that receptive state.
I've been thinking about something. Have there been people throughout history who were actually tuning into these parallel frequencies without even knowing it? People we might recognize?
Absolutely, Jack. Throughout history, many innovative thinkers were likely natural frequency receivers. Nikola Tesla famously claimed his ideas came to him fully formed. He would visualize his inventions operating perfectly before building them.
And don't forget about musicians. Mozart described how entire compositions would appear in his mind at once. He wasn't creating, he was receiving.
That's incredible. So these geniuses might have just had better antennas than the rest of us?
In a way, yes. What we now understand is that many creative breakthroughs happen in alpha and theta brainwave states, the same states we're teaching listeners to access intentionally.
The exciting part is that anyone can develop this skill. That's why I tell beginners to study what puts them in flow state, those moments when time disappears and ideas flow naturally. That's your personal doorway to frequency reception.
I know we've been exploring this fascinating topic, but I've got to address the elephant in the room. Many people listening right now probably think this all sounds a bit, well, out there. How do you both respond to skeptics who say this is just imagination or wishful thinking?
Valid concern, Jack. Skepticism is actually healthy. I approached this field with doubt myself. What changed my perspective was looking at quantum physics. The observer effect shows reality isn't as fixed as we once thought. Even Einstein talked about spooky action at a distance.
For beginners struggling with doubt, I suggest a simple experiment. Try the techniques we've discussed with zero expectation, just as a relaxation exercise. Often, the most powerful insights come when you're not trying to force them.
But couldn't this all just be our brains making connections with information we already have?
Absolutely it could, and that's okay. Whether these ideas come from parallel dimensions or your own subconscious, the value is in the insights themselves. Many great thinkers throughout history attributed their breakthroughs to mysterious sources.
The beauty is you don't need to fully believe to benefit. Just remain open to possibility. That tiny crack in your skepticism might be all that's needed for something remarkable to come through.
Let's shift gears and talk about some more advanced techniques for those who've been practicing. What happens when beginners start getting consistent results and want to level up their reception abilities?
This is where it gets exciting, Jack. Once you've established a baseline connection, try the dimensional triangulation technique. Choose 3 distinct problems in your life, and rather than focusing on one at a time, hold all 3 in your mind simultaneously.
It's like creating a mental coordinate system. When you triangulate, solutions often emerge that solve multiple challenges at once. For beginners who've mastered the basics, I also recommend experimenting with sound elements. Try humming a single note while receiving.
Wait, humming? How does that help?
Sound vibrations actually synchronize brain hemispheres. When you produce a consistent tone, you're creating what we call a carrier wave that can help stabilize incoming signals. Even complete beginners can try this.
And don't forget the power of unexpected locations. Try your reception practice somewhere completely new, even a busy coffee shop. Sometimes the contrast between external chaos and internal stillness creates perfect reception conditions.
Well, folks, we've covered incredible ground today. From awakening your inner receiver to decoding transmissions, peak reception times, binaural beats, creating personal symbols, and even studying historical frequency hackers. Dr. Maya, what's your final takeaway for our listeners just beginning this journey?
Remember that this is a practice, not a perfect. Start small with just 5 minutes daily. Whether these insights come from parallel dimensions or your own untapped creativity, the value is in what they bring to your life. Your brain is designed to receive, you're just learning to listen differently.
And don't judge what comes through. The strangest messages often contain the most profound solutions. Document everything, try the simple techniques we've shared, and most importantly, have fun with it. Mushi.
Before we sign off, I ask all my guests one question. If you could tune into only one parallel dimension for the rest of your life, which would you choose?
The dimension where humans fully understand consciousness.
I choose the one where creativity and logic are perfectly balanced in everyone.
Until next time, keep your mental dial spinning and your frequency symbols glowing.